if there was.
And one, can you see how many people are online?
So I just put it live like
Just
8 seconds ago.
I can see that there's one, but maybe it's me.
Yeah. And one is my husband. Will be. If he's not sleeping.
There is like a fire, I should be. You have to pay for it or ask. Don't mess with
So this is okay, still like
What is rating? Yeah,
no, it's live.
Yeah,
Francesca, she wants
Really? No,
because of the.
I don't know if I can see.
No, we can see it. What is this file?
Are you both Italian?
Okay. Everybody's.
I think it's how many people are following me.
Yeah, I think that is
No,
fine.
no, 3.
Okay, well,
Three viewers.
3.
You can get the song now. I already said you can watch it. I already was super late.
It's really tasty. Seriously.
Okay.
Now I'm hiding this background screen. And now you can.
I'm not a good chef. Somebody
In the Finnish
Okay, so welcome to City Talks on behalf of myself and Viva and FEMMA and Dodo as well. So my name is Milla Kalle, I'm from FEMMA Planning, and we are a small company specialized in participatory planning, and we wanted to organize this event to discuss maybe some of the differences and similarities, challenges and strengths in Iranian planning systems and Finnish planning systems. And of course, thank you to Dodo as well for organizing this urban dinner so that we can have nice food and enjoy the talk at the same time. So further ado, I will let Viva introduce the topic and herself. Maybe just to add that later on we will have guest speakers. Hossam Hevidi from Aalto University from Finland will join us and present a few topics from the Finnish perspective, and then Mohammed from Iran will also join us online. But yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I think if I can, it would be better Okay, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here presenting this interesting topic, at least for me, to you. We are going to hear about the city planning systems, both in Iran and in Finland, and then we have some parts of comparing these two systems, and we will hear about the current challenges that these systems are facing now. If we can move forward with this. Based on the table of context, we will hear about the history of urbanization in those countries, and then we'll see how city planning systems work in practice. After that, we have the short comparison by myself from my point of view, and afterward we can hear from our guest speakers what do they think about the challenges and the common trends right now in urban planning systems. And afterward, we'll have a free discussion part, which is possible for you to participate if you want and ask questions. And afterward, we have just some closing words. Okay. Here we can see two timelines. At first, it is possible for you to see where the two countries are located. Iran is located in West Asia, and Finland is a Nordic country, as you can see here. And in the timeline, you can see the most important historical events for both countries that were kind of influencing the urbanization in both countries and urban planning systems. Here in this part, you can see that pre-urbanization stage happened late 1700, and afterward we had the first constitutional transformation happening while Iran had its first constitutional revolution. Afterward, urbanization kind of happened pretty quickly, and it continued to current quickly. For Finland, we see that in 1917, Finland became independent, and then urbanization took place, and the standards of living were improving, and until these days, that sustainable city is a trend in urban planning systems in Finland. And here we can see what happened in pre-urbanization stage in Iran. First, I wanted to mention that the most important system in Europe back then was feudalism system, but in Iran it was pretty different, and it was called pseudo-feudalism. First, shortly, I want to mention what was feudalism system. The system was like when higher ranked people had the power to allocate land to labor and the people who were kind of ordinary people from middle level income. And they worked for the landlords and they fight back for them instead of using their land and producing food through agricultural work. And in Iran, we had somehow a different system named pseudo-feudalism. It was based on, it was not based on land ownership, but more of a temporary usage of land, because most of the people in Iran back then were groups named Kuch, which they moved from one place to another constantly, and they didn't have kind of home or a structural urban structure to live within. So they moved from one place to another. So the most important thing was the right of using land, not owning it. Based on this system in Iran, we had somehow indirect agreements between landlords and the person who was owning the land, and the people who were working on the land and using it as grazing spots mostly. But in European system, we had somehow direct and strict and very, very clear agreements between landlords and people who were using it. And the last item I wanted to mention about this stage is that in Iran, religious bodies and the government were somehow integrated. So in Iran, this system shaped like a more powerful, let's say more dictator kind of government rather than Europe, in which a parallel competition were kind of existed between kings, landlords, and also the church. And here in the picture, you can see two kind of pictures from Tehran and Helsinki in somehow same ages, 80s in Iran. This is a gate from Tehran named Shemiran, and the picture is taken from outside of the gate through the inside of the city. And in Helsinki, even though at that time it was the kind of Finland was part of Russia, the urban life was present at city market square in 1890s. Next, we will go through the constitutional transformations in Iran. The first revolution happened in 1906, and until 1911, the law was reformed pretty much. And afterwards, shortly after that, the first municipality in Tehran was established. And shortly after the first municipality, Iran had more than 136 other municipalities based on the new reformed law after the revolution. And we came to the next stage in Iran, which was industrial era, which happened in Iran pretty late comparing to European countries, which was after. In Iran, the industrial era happened after Second World War. And by happening this, we had like new factories, international and national businesses in Iran, which were built almost somehow within the old structure of cities. This shaped a new and unique kind of urban structure, urban architecture in Iran. And this kind of architecture was in contrast to old ancient urban structure in Iran, which had most of the kind of, let's say, religious buildings, structures, mosques, domes, and these kind of buildings were kind of demolishing somehow, not partially. And the first urban planning law in Iran was passed in 1933, and afterward, Tehran had its first comprehensive plan for the whole city and the future development of city. And at the same time, almost at the same time in Finland, we had after 1917 independency, and the standard of living in Finland grew until Finland was integrating with other European countries by joining the European Union in 1995. And afterward, we can say that Finland had a more integrated law, legislation, and urban planning standards with other EU countries, so they are mostly similar to each other. And here you can see a picture of almost the first modern-looking street developed in Tehran in 1960s. The name of the street is Ladazar, and it was the first street that had two-story buildings, kind of modern-looking, full of luxury shops, hotel, and I guess cinema, of course. And this was like a sign of modernization in Tehran back then. And here we can see a picture of Tehran before Islamic Revolution, before 1979. And back then, I want to mention some attributes of what happened before Islamic Revolution. Municipalities owned the land and they could allocate land in the system they wanted in 1960. Afterward, and a 50% increase in labor wages caused population to migrate to bigger cities from suburban areas. So the population, especially in Tehran, kind of were increasing pretty rapidly. So the borders and the gate I showed you in the previous slides, and the borders of Tehran were no more working. So suddenly a lot of residential areas were established outside the borders of the city. And just before the revolution, the government had to lift restrictions for, under some political pressures, they had to lift the restrictions for expansion of the city, and that resulted to 300 kilometers expansion of Tehran in terms of residential areas and the population, both. So this remarkable urban expansion happened just before the revolution, and afterward the revolution happened, all the law, planning system, and everything were under review. And afterward, we have the current planning system, which we'll be looking at in the next slide. Before doing that, I wanted to mention a couple of challenges and kind of differences from my point of view, which is significant between Iran and Finland. First, you can see the graph here, the difference between population and population density. I will mention population density further, but it is the way that population grew in Iran by this color, orange color, and then in Finland. Based on, from my point of view, that this difference make a lot of, let's say, differences between urban planning systems, because population is the most important thing when you're planning for new residential areas or city services or everything related to urban areas. So, but I would also mention that currently in Iran, because the data was until 2020, and the data in population almost updates every 10 years in Iran. So current trends shows that this kind of growing population is now speeding down, and we don't have that much of birth rate in Iran as well today. But there's a big difference. Next, I will mention political participation in Iran, which is very low, and it, in my opinion, it affects the community or participatory urban planning as well in both countries. In Finland, I would say that it is kind of much better, and people are willing to participate in urban planning process, while in Iran, it's not like that. And afterward, I would mention the ranking for sustainable development performance. Finland is the first in this ranking, and I will, for you who need the reference, I will provide it later. And this ranking shows that how much is the country successful to follow their targets in terms of developing sustainably. And Iran is 86 based on the report. And we can, unfortunately, the time doesn't let me to go through the details. So if you were interested, we can speak about it later. And the last thing I want to mention about the urban planning system in Iran is that there's two kinds of planning, official and unofficial, in my understanding. And because there's a fraction between what is decided and what is implemented in action. And it is pretty easy to affect decision making in different levels, especially in smaller scale levels in Iran. So this fraction may be some reason that people are not so willing to participate, because the outline and the outcome is totally different from what is decided, usually. And here we can see urban planning system in both countries. Finland from this part, showing Iran this part. I will go through the levels for both countries. First, we have national level. In national level in Finland, we don't have a plan, but there's land use guidelines and goals which are followed in the second and third level as well. In Iran, we have such a national development plan for the whole country, covering the different perspectives of development for cities and country. And the institutions that are involved in making them for Iran, this is Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Roads and Urban Development, Superior Council of Urban Planning and Architecture. And this, in short, is MRUD, which I will refer to that later. And this organization has many branches in different cities and different municipalities to ensure that the national development objectives are followed. In Finland, we have a Council of the State responsible for national land use guidelines and environment, agricultural, forestry, transport and communication, economic affairs, and employment ministries who are responsible for preparing and approving it. And we go to the next level, which is regional level. In Finland, we have a regional land use plan and another agreement. It's not a plan, but an agreement that is between 14 municipalities, 14 areas that share common guidelines for development. And the regional councils and Center of Economic Development and Transport and the environment are responsible for preparing and approving it. In Iran, regional urban planning, we have regional urban plan and district plan. By district plan, I mean this district plan can cover whether a number of provinces altogether or part of a province. Here you can see a small map of province of Tehran, which might have some regional plan for part of it or the whole of it, or otherwise we have district plan. And provincial planning offices and Islamic provincial councils are responsible for approving and preparing it. And the last level, we have municipal level for Finland and local level for Iran. I made a difference between these two because, again, because of the population, I think local means different in Finland rather than Iran. I will tell you more about it here. In Finland, we have general plan, then sub-general plan, and detailed plan, and the most smallest scale plan in Finland is district and park plans. And these are prepared by municipalities, joint municipal boards, and citizens. Also, other groups can participate through municipal election and participatory planning. Otherwise, on the other hand, in Iran, we have a new plan, which is new also in Iran, Metropolitan Area Plan. Metropolitan Area Plan is prepared now only for Tehran, which is really a big city with 16 million population in its metropolitan area, comparing to Helsinki, which has almost 1.6 million in its metropolitan area. You can see the difference between these two and how is the scale working there. But Metropolitan Area Plan is prepared for the city Tehran and some satellite cities around it. And these cities are mostly cities, not just kind of dormitory suburban areas, but the network between them is important, how they connect with the Tehran as the core city and as a place that people use to commute for work and other aims and goals almost every day. So this Metropolitan Area Plan is testing in Tehran, and if it's successful, it will be happening for other big cities in Iran, like Isfahan and Mashhad as well. And after that, in this level, we have Master Plan, Rural Development Plan, which are prepared by governorship, municipality, city council, and also I mentioned MRUD representatives in this level. And here we say welcome to our guest speakers to join us for the discussion. We will have Mohammad Hamed Abdi from Iran, and he's an assistant professor in the University of Bojnord. And we will have Hossam Hedi from Finland, also university. And yeah, if we can hear and test. Yes, perfect. Mohammed, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, then you can start.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. It's better to say good night here in Iran. We have a rainy night and very good to us. So, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody that participated in this good presentation and city plan talks, especially to Viva and his team, her team. First of all, I would like to say when she talked to me about the subject and told me that she wants to compare two different planning systems and put two different planning systems in two different areas on the same plate, I was surprised. I was worried how we can do that. And but when I saw his presentation, and there were some interesting points that we will get back with my colleague Hossam to that, and we can have a good comparison with that. Okay. Yeah, she talked about the planning system in Finland and Iran, and first of all, I should talk about some characteristics of the planning system in Iran. But in short, most of them was introduced by Viva. But I would like to classify them into some specific features that we have here. Yes, I can confirm that we have a highly centralized system of planning. A kind of top-down planning system with very limited public engagement and very highly concentrated power at the top tier and top levels. We can say our planning systems is dealing with inflexibility that is kind of rigid planning for a long period of time. For a very wide scale of area. For example, for a city, we provide a plan for 10 or 20 years, and it makes very problem because city is dynamic. We know, all of us, we know that city is a dynamic body and change time by time, and we can say change day by day. And this is not good for any planning system to be inflexible. We have in other parts some economical issues like sanctions, limited budget, some kind of fraud, all-based economy, and something like that. In our planning system, housing has priority over planning, in fact. Our planning bodies try to provide housing instead of planning to have quality urban areas. There are other things to be mentioned. For example, there are disconnections between planning sectors, between housing and transport. As you know, there are deputies of the same Ministry of Road and Urban Development, but we can say they work in their cells and they are not connected together. That has made really big problems during this 50 years or half a century of planning in Iran. I put these pictures here to say that it's not just specific to the case of Iran, but it has been realized in Iran very good. We had crisis, we had the industrialization, like the world, as Viva said, but with some kind of delay. But we try to plan for to find solutions to address such crises. But this kind of planning during this half a century has made crises again. But in fact, we can say our planning system has not been effective in some ways. I don't like to be pessimistic in this way, but I put these pictures here to put specific attention and focus on the many specific challenges that we have in Iran and more broadly in the developing countries like Iran. For example, you can see the housings disparities across the desert of lands. We can see pollutions, air and noise pollution, deteriorated bus fleets, and traffic jams. In fact, disabilities, people with disabilities, traffic crashes, and many other challenges that you can see in the next slide as we will help. challenges in association with the environmental issues like floods that has made very big problems during these recent decades in Iran. Women issues in terms of their presence in public spaces. In fact, we can say some problems related to the gender spaces. We have poor people's informal sector, informal settlements, and many other problems that you can see here. I would like to, in fact, there were a good presentation by Viva that compared two sustainability results for Iran and Finland, that we saw that the rank of Iran as one of the top worst country, we can say, it was the result of such planning system, in my view, that the planning system during this half a century has been pro-rich people, that has made inequality and privileges for rich people. In fact, in terms of environment, in fact, there has not been specific attention to the environmental sides, but we did use most of our environmental resources during these decades. And in terms of social sides, we can say there has not been inclusiveness on the agenda, and we have seen disintegrated communities during these years. But as you said before, I don't like to be pessimistic and put stress on the very dark side of the such planning and system. We have many strongness as well, but this is a very general picture that I can show you, that, as Viva said, what is decided has been very different than what is implemented in Iran. So I would like to put the table there, and for many discussions and some possible question that rise on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohammad. It's very nice. Yeah, then we welcome Hossam to introduce and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, this is a slide.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum, Mohammed. Do you hear me?
Salam. Yes.
Okay. So I think that we might be well tuned if I'm talking about my own country, where I came from. I came from Egypt, from Cairo, another metropolitan of 20 million inhabitants. So this might be well synchronized or well harmonized discussion. But I'm today discussing the case of Finland. I would go thoroughly to some basic principles in the Finnish planning, and normally it is the same case in Nordic and Scandinavian, in the northern European cities, that they are somehow going together hand to hand with the same development of the planning theory. So planning theory was imported from across the ocean from Chicago School by this rationality, developed during the 40s and late 50s, and I think that planning as a practice was something about planner rule as an analyst. So data is gathered, analyzed, and then there is this kind of superiority of knowledge, and there was an assumption that the planner can solve any problem. And there, I would say there was a clear absence. Here, the issue is not about dictatorship or what kind of democracy, but it was the superiority of the knowledge, that lay people were excluded from the planning decision. However, and contradictory, that the constitution in Finland legitimized the land use decision by the obligation of participation, public participation. So you cannot avoid that any decision, land use decision, should be somehow presented to public and gather as much as possible from their opinions. Then, of course, the development, one of the very rapid disciplines recently is planning theory, and then it was followed, rationality and knowledge was followed by the incrementalism, which was brought by Lyndon again from the States, that there was some watchdogs representing the interest group to follow up their interest in any planning situation. And this was also again accused, and it was somehow on parallel replaced partially by the advocacy planning, where the planner is taking the role of a lawyer and represents some of the groups, or even sometimes non-human, if we're talking about nature, to empower certain values or certain ethical consideration in planning. Later, until maybe the moment, this was replaced by collaborative or communicative deliberative planning, which is somehow there was some looseness in the role taken by planners from being the superior master or technocratic public servants who can provide any solutions for many problems. And the collaborative planning was later development, or lately, by the agonistic setting, which is somehow considering all the conflicts of interest to be a potential in providing solutions. What does this mean actually? It means that planning theory is being developed rapidly within 5 to 6 decades, but power never dies. All the time, the power distribution between all stakeholders are suspended and I would say unequally somehow mastered at certain hands. So and this will somehow put us between some contradictions between planner as or planning as a reactive or proactive. Are we reflecting to the needs, which is the reactive, or are we proposing initiative to anticipate futures and their uncertainties? In front of us, this is from Malmö area in the southern of Sweden, and the neighborhood is called Rosengård. And in Rosengård, this block of buildings to the right, the most right, it has a basement, and mostly this block was inhabited by immigrants from Iranian, Kurdish, maybe other nationalities, but actually, because immigrants are somehow lag behind the economic integration in the labor market, they were somehow left empty-handed, and they would like to do some business, very humble business, but actually it is illegal at the same time. They were doing some deep frying, if you like. They were cooking at the basement of this block. And one very important lesson out of this, that the city of Malmö, the municipality, they didn't fine them or penalize them for doing something illegal, because of course the basements are not well equipped with firefighting equipment or systems, but they decided to invest millions of coronas to extend this block into a bazaar. And this lower building with the green floor is an extension of the building that is based on an analytical approach by the planners and the designer architect there. It's called the Swedish typology is called the bucklar, and the bucklar means that, as if maybe we have visited Japan, it is combining the living on the top of the business, where Japanese people can be living on the top of their retail facility. So all people living in this block, they are connected to these retail facilities or these premises by seven floors. It is about 105 centimeters different in the level. But actually, this was a great transformation of the block, because it needs the reallocation of all the wet area in the living block. So it is somehow, I would say, making the invisible was in the basement to visible. And actually, here is the political will, and here is actually empowering a certain group or a certain aspect. What this may lead, actually, I'm giving this from Sweden, because in Finland, we are lag behind this. We are not reading from best practice. When Helsinki specifically is growing, there is a lot of urban gentrification and urban regeneration for areas that they are somehow hosting immigrants, and they develop certain characteristics, very unique, I would say, good urban hubs, for premises that were left vacant for a while because of the deterioration and the absence of the independent mainstream retail and the booming of the chain retail, and they were left vacant during the 90s. With the arrival of immigrants, they have put into life these premises back. And actually, what's happening, according to the latest master plan of the city of Helsinki, that these places will be between demolished or somehow partially demolished. And of course, those who will be developed will be out of the affordability of the people running the businesses, mean a full displacement, which I called in one of my papers that this will be a cleansing, socio-economical cleansing. So the issue is that where is planning from the changes that we are facing, be they in Iran or Tehran, be they in Helsinki, and what is the situation and unequal use and accessibility to power that make many groups and many values and a lot of ethical consideration equally shared, and somehow opposing the entrepreneurial approach to land use, which is mostly oriented to the added value to the property.
Thank you so much. Thanks. And if Mohammad, you can hear us, if you have something to ask, you are more than welcome to do so. Maybe he lost his connection. Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation that he made. Yeah, it was so interesting. The kind of planning theory has been established, and in fact, we had during this period of time, and there's some experiences from Swedish part and Helsinki. Thank you. I would like to hear many possible questions that we may have.
Yeah, we can hear from maybe participants here, or if we have someone online asking something, I can check actually.
I'm following also the chat.
Okay, nice. Okay.
Yeah, meanwhile, maybe the audience can think of a question to ask. I could start with asking maybe both of you that now that we've discussed the planning systems in both countries, and maybe Hossam gave an example of where people through maybe not participating directly, but more like not going totally in grain with the laws and abiding those, but doing creative things on their own, they were able to then influence the planning or get an outcome that was maybe closer to what they would need from the urban spaces and services around them. But my question was that, what do you think people could do themselves to influence the outcomes of the planning? If they have some agenda or some goals that they would want to see in their environments or in their neighborhoods, what could they do? What do you think they could do in Iran? And what about Hossam in Finland? What would be good ways to influence?
Mohammad, please start.
Do you want to start, Mohammad?
No. I would like to hear.
Okay, we will start and then you can continue afterward. Perfect.
Right. I think that one main issue that you cannot satisfy everyone, and you cannot get out of any planning development a solution that will satisfy and will be somehow good for everyone. The idea is that, but again, here is the point that normally planning as a futuristic action, it is considering more important the potential arrival for the development than the current users. And this is, I would say that this is part of the, it is built in the system. The system normally, by changing the demographic profile, is somehow trying to flatter the newcomers. But I would say it should start from the localities, because the current localities, including them in any future development, is what will create an authentic place. We are suffering from places at many cities, not only Helsinki, that look similar to each other because of lacking this authenticity. and authenticity is embedded in the locality without considering what's happened nowadays at this moment, at the very moment of starting to gather information. This is lost. So the city should include this is the part of the city or the authority. What about then the society? I think that capitalizing is very important. To capitalize and to take some active actions. Maybe I can give one of the, maybe it's failed, but it is a good trial. There was an opposition of the development of the Malmö airport. A lot of people, activist people, were against the development of Malmö airport. They were very few, but they succeeded to slow down the development of the area. At least they raised the voices of certain values for people who concerned about keeping the airport as it is. I think that no way then I would here maybe go to the civil rights in the states. Without civil conflicts, no gains, no pain, no gain. It means that society should continuously work for reflecting the preferences, the needs, and what they satisfy from, to tell this continuously. The special case, maybe I will put this also to Mohammed because maybe he doesn't know about it. The special case of Helsinki is the land ownership. Exceptionally, Helsinki owns 75%, and this is on the national level, the highest ownership of property. For this reason, I would say that participation and considering weak people, weak groups, or even flying squirrels, let's talk about even of the non-human. Public participation is not very important because they can do whatever they plan because they own the land. While if you compare ESCO, for example, where the ownership is much less than this, they all the time need to go what's it called in Finnish, the kaavakumppanuus, or public-private participation and partnership. They go to this kind of win-win deal with other parties. They care about it. So I think that we need continuously to raise our voices, capitalize and make civilized conflicts all the time, oppose and tell about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Before moving to Mohammed and the case of Iran, I would like to ask, because I remembered some practice we did in university, and my group was presenting local community groups from Porvoo area, one small village, and in planning system in Helsinki, how these community groups can represent themselves. Is there, for example, I know there are some channels for them to raise their voice or claim against the plan or something, but there's a deadline and very, very limited amount of time, and it is not kind of published very well, so everyone doesn't know about it and these kind of things. But where is their place in the planning system? Is it like from the small level, which scale is it?
Yes. Thank you very much. This is a crucial question because the way to implement and activate public participation is far difficult. Mm-hmm. We are criticizing municipalities, but at the same time, we need to provide good best practices how to work with this. I have been for a while in the Midland County in the UK as a visiting researcher, and I happened to see that the planning, it's called the Planning Council of Birmingham, they hired what they call the fourth sector. The fourth sector are representative of ethnic communities. They are academics working with social studies, with urban studies, with geography, with architecture, planning, just name it. And they are like connecting agents between communities and the municipality. They are reflecting what the municipality intend to do in the development, and they also send back some signals, be them weak signals or strong signals from their community. But this is not the whole story. This continues with the public participation events. I think that most of us know that English is the most spoken after the Chinese or Mandarin. But imagine that in Birmingham, I witnessed a public participation events where the planning of the city and even the explanation called in Finnish, the selostus, was translated into 160 languages, fully. The documents need to reach every single person living in Birmingham with own language. So this is exactly the political will we have witnessed in Rosengård in Malmö. You need to reflect a political will that really care about reaching people. So I would say that what's happened in reality, that there is a link after any development and people go to visit, but however, this is excluding those who are not using the internet. And the other issue is that from the language that you read, that you will see mostly people with academic background or somehow relevant to the urban development are the ones from the language you can read. But those who are not here, it doesn't matter that those are accepting and they are happy. So I would say that the hidden voices or the unlistened to voices are very important. So how to make ways and methods, develop methods to reach these people. This is very, I would say, is very essential. I have no magic wand or a golden rule, but
No
I
one
think that this is something to study.
Yeah, it is for sure.
Can I add to Hossam's comment that I think maybe the first thing you said about the struggle of the space as well, that and then related to maybe the official participatory channels, and then maybe there are a lot of like unofficial ways to influence or at least try to get your voices heard. But I think planners as a profession or professionals themselves should also kind of like pay attention to what is happening in the world and in their cities or their areas what they are planning, so that it wouldn't be only those official planning or participatory channels like web services or online things or workshops or things like that, but also to consider that there are activists, there is a lot of like young people on the streets demonstrating for things. Are those being taken into consideration in the planning, or not as such, but what can we derive from those things that are happening around us? And a lot of people are participating in those actions nowadays. For example, even in Helsinki, which is not always like the most active place.
I would reduce maybe the level of blaming and accusing planners with everything, because well, they are my colleagues, and some of them, young generation, were my students, and they have a very high values, and they are very, I would say, have very high ethical standard. It's not about individuality; it's about the real players in the scene. We see only planners, but decisions are made by politicians, and politicians normally they don't show up. So planners as the technocrat are the forum where people can talk technical language. And technical language is the one, I would say it is the mask that you can hide behind. So of course, if a politician will introduce another planning, he or she can spoil it. But if this comes through planning channels, very professionally, very technically, this technocratic body is somehow covering the unbalanced use of power by politicians, and you can see who's on the chair, and you can easily see that are we now with right political party, left, green, just name it. So planning is a public good that is crucially political. It is inside all the politics, and I would say that you can see all the questionnaire given for any candidate. All the time it's about planning. Most of the time is about planning and how to allocate the resources. It's budget or planning. So I would say that I cannot put the whole package on the planner tables, but it is rather, I would say, it's a bit complex.
Yeah,
it's the truth. Yeah,
it is. And if you want to start with your first question first, Mohammad, will you tell us what do you think people can do in Iran to be heard more in planning system?
I would like to add to your discussion the case of Iran. In fact, in Iran, we are at a very early stage of participatory planning. If we imagine the participation ladder of Einstein, we are in a very first stage in information. Just the government, the central government, top down, provide information for people, and I can say this is the story of participation. But many people think the participation of people, especially in the plans and design schemes, it depends on the many other factors. For example, some people says that they are not willingness bottom up from people, because people are not willing to engage in the planning and design system, because there are many others to think about that, other than their environment, their neighborhood, their there are people say that there are no willingness from the public to participate in the planning system. And as Hossam said, the politicians, to be exact, the politicians are very, in fact, are very effective and central in the case of participatory planning. We are planners, and we are, in fact, implement what the politician has already decided for us. And we are in a system. We can play our role, but the politicians are in an upper hand and provide policies, especially in the case of Iran, which it faces a very centralized planning system. That politicians can play a very important role and very central role in this case. So planners try to engage people, but there are no willingness from people, in my view, and on the other hand, there are no willingness from the upper tier, from the government, to engage people in the planning system, because engagements needs everything, needs money, engagement needs and takes time and takes energy from government, and there are some opinions that the central government does not like. It's the problem, I think, in the case of such developing countries with a centralized planning system, that I think participation is in a very early stage that, in my view, cannot be compared to the case of developed countries and very democratic system of planning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much. And if we have time, we're gonna hear more questions. Yeah.
Unless there was a question in the chat.
Is there? Okay.
4 minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you for everyone for wonderful presentations, and thank you for joining us, Mohammad, from all the way from Iran. My question is, or I have many questions, but I have to choose. So my question is, what do you both of you see are the strengths of the Finnish and Iranian planning systems, and maybe even Egyptian? Yeah, I would like to hear that. And also, how do you see the future of these cities?
Okay, if you start with Hossam first.
Well, I think that talking about the organization and government, one very good advantage in the planning system in Finland, that it belongs to the Ministry of Environment. And belonging to the Ministry of Environment means that it is somehow considering the impact assessment on the environment. For example, if you compare this with the Danish planning system, it is under the authority of business. So there is the rewards from the planning are more economical, but here is more environmental. So this is one of the advantages, or I would say the highest of it. Planning in Finland, not far from Iran, it is about the housing provision. Because if you have a high population, then the planning is going mostly about housing. And it is catastrophic because housing is free from being controlled, so it is at the hand of the private sector and private developers. And nowadays, security is compared, it's exactly as what's happening in Latin America about the gated community. So you make compounds for the elite who can afford, but the others are left in the inner city with a bit cheering premises. So we can continue this, but give this to Mohammad now.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Mohammad, what do you think is the most strengthful point of Iranian system?
I think, I think there is no strength for planning for current planning system, but I see some future good points. For example, our planning system is thinking about the sustainable ways to make its cities sustainable. For example, in last years we have a national guideline on transit-oriented development, joining transport and housing together. And we have a national guidelines that the municipalities or our local representative were obliged to do this in their plans. Or other things like biophilic urban design, like sensitive to water. And there are some sustainability-centered subjects that are coming to our countries. And this is because of the international relationship between the scholars, between the politicians, between the governance system of the country. For example, the BRT system in Tehran is a kind of up-to-date system of what we have in Curitiba, in Brazil, that is very famous across the world. This is because of the relationship between of this country. The mayor or of the Tehran visited Curitiba for this special issue, and then tried to implement this kind of transportation system, and it does work in Tehran very successfully in conjunction with the metro system and other things. But what I want to add here is that the strengths or weakness of the planning system in Iran is highly associated and concerned with a government that every 4 years come to the power. For example, our previous government put a stress on for example, on the joining transportation and land use, on the dense housing systems. It was very close to the sustainability principles, but the current governance changed their idea to the single detached housing with higher area and something like that. That is for us something far from the sustainability principles. That is, I think, it's true that we have international relationships. We are adopting sustainability paradigms, sustainability. We can say sustainability approaches from other countries and globally. That it depends on the government that's ruling the country, and it can be changed year by year and decades by decades. And we cannot see any kind of stability in the political system, especially in the case of urban planning system.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your participation, and from everybody who is here. Thank you for being with us through this presentation. And thank you again, Mohammad and Hossam, for the interesting discussion we had.
You're
and
welcome.
hope to again, maybe in future, talking more about planning systems and delving into the details, maybe in the future. And thank you for everyone who followed us online.
Thank you to all.
Thank you, and have a good time, Mohammad. Bye.
Thank you.